welcome to the second tutorial of GTK ToolButton. If I didn't convince you enough in the first video why I hate this widget, then maybe in this one you understand better. Anyway, now we are going to move on and we are going to learn two new functions. And the two new functions which we are going to learn today, they are called GTK ToolButton set icon widget and GTK ToolButton set label widget. About the GTK ToolButton set icon widget, it is a function which basically sets the icon as the widget used as icon on the button. If the icon widget is null, then the icon is determined by the stock ID property, which is deprecated, whatever. If the stock ID property is also null, button will have no icon. Okay, so we need to call this function, which means I'm going to do it right here because I want to show you something. Nope, not like that, but like that. Before I'm doing this, I want to comment these things right here. You will see why. Okay, so now GTK ToolButton, our tool button and our icon. Now I'm going to use the same icon which we created before right here. So let me copy this part and throw it here, and I'm going to remove this one right here because there are too many calls. Okay, now basically I created an icon and I put the icon inside the tool button with the help of GTK button set icon widget. As you can see, now we have the icon, which is the headphones and audio headphones, which means works fine, and the name, it is the headphones as well. Now let me call this function. I want to set this one not to the headphone but to the phone. So at this point, GTK ToolButton set icon name, you see I'm calling again the same function which we called it before in the first video, and we try to set the icon of this one with another one. It's not working, of course not working. The documentation says something, but like I said, it is complicated and it's freaking out. Okay, so this call is dead. Now let's see what do we have the next function which I want to introduce you. It is called GTK set label widget. It's a function which basically sets a label widget and sets the label widget as the widget that will be used as the label for the button. So if, in other words, label widget is null, the label property is used as label. If label is also null, then label is stock ID determined by the stock ID, and so on. If not, then the button has no label. Okay, so let's see. Let us create a label, GTK widget, label, GTK label new. I'm going to create a new label, not with name, just a new label, and I'm going to call it phone. Okay, now with the help of GTK ToolButton set label, we are going to set it. Now what do we have here? We have a label. Now let's see what happens, and the icon, it is now phone because the label is now phone. So let's change it back to phone right here because it's not working. You saw yourself. This function does nothing in this case. Okay. So now we have basically a phone and a phone icon, which is fine. Now let me show you something. Let me put an underline in front of this label, and then I'm going to call this function right here. At this point, because we put an underscore in front of our label and we are setting the tool button to true, when I compile it and run it, I was expecting, maybe you as well, that once that you see, once that you press the Alt, that you have a mnemonic, but no, instead you have this line, which means this function does nothing. No problem, let us change it with mnemonic. So at this point we create a label with mnemonic, which is phone. Watch, at this point the mnemonic indeed what does work, which means we don't see it now, but once that you press Alt and then P, you see, works fine. And of course, maybe you will think because this function GTK ToolButton set use underline, which is set to true, did the trick this time. No, it didn't. So I'm going to show you, because I'm going to set this function also to false. Now let's see, we have the phone. I'm going to press Alt and P. You see, works fine, which means again this function and this function are garbage. That being said, you know now, if you want to work with those functions, you know now how they're working, you understand them. If you need a label with mnemonic, you better create yourself one and put it there. If you don't, then just rely on the label which you provided when you create the button. The same story goes for the icon. If you want to put an icon there, put an icon there with GTK icon directly there. But if you want to change it later, you cannot do it. If you want to change the icon name later with another one, then just pass null and call every time the GTK button set icon name, and everything is fine. If you don't set nothing, which means you pass null and you don't do the GTK tool button set icon name call, then with the help of GTK tool button set icon widget, you still can put an icon inside it. But again, if you work with widgets instead of setting directly with this function, then you cannot change it later. The same story goes with the label as well. You cannot have an underline wherever you do. Whether you use this function or not, it's a dead function. It's not working at all. And if you want to have indeed an underline, then create your label itself with a mnemonic, put an underscore in front of it, and then put the label inside the tool button with the help of GTK tool button set label widget, and you're fine. And at this point, when I compile it and run it, if I press Alt, as you already noticed, you see there is the underline right under the P, and if I hit P, now works fine. That being said, thank you guys for watching. If you like it, please subscribe, share with your friends and neighbors, and until next time, see you guys.